Huang Yueli hastily turned around, pulling along the blanket that had dropped onto the floor and coiled it around herself, hiding her head into it. That position of hers looked exactly like an ostrich. Li Moying amusingly shook his head, tempted to tell her that even if she hid herself, Luo Jiyun had already saw what happened earlier, so it was pointless to do so. However, to prevent the domestic violence displayed by his fiancée in front of his junior brother, he judiciously shut his mouth. Compared to the embarrassment felt by Huang Yueli, Li Moying was completely unaffected. The blanket had been stolen away completely by Huang Yueli, and he had nothing to cover his body with. Yesterday night, for the convenience of applying medication, he was already half-dressed. Earlier, when they were entangling on the bed, in the process of dilly-dallying, the remaining of his clothes were completed disheveled. Now, he was in a state of half-nudity, and his fair but sturdy chest muscles were portrayed in the open air. On his chest were 2 strokes of scratches which was left earlier by Huang Yueli when she was resisting him. It looked especially ambiguous. Li Moying did not feel any hinge of awkwardness and calmly tidied his clothes. Following that, he shot an unfriendly glance towards Luo Jiyun. "Don't you know how to knock before you enter? Where have your manners gone to?" The minute Luo Jiyun opened the door, he already knew that he had committed a huge offense to have bumped into the scene of intimacy between his senior brother and future sister-in-law. This, he would probably be chopped into several pieces by his senior brother. But he felt indignant for himself. Li Moying was unconscious due to his heavy injuries, and Huang Yueli was taking care of him. According to natural train of thoughts, both of them should be sleeping fully clothed and couldn't be more pure than the blanket. Who knew that the injured patient had awoken and was full of vigor and vitality, oppressing the one who had been taking care of him onto the bed? Senior brother was simply a beast. But he absolutely had no guts to spill out these words of ridicule. Luo Jiyun shrunk his neck and carefully explained, "Senior brother, I did knock earlier, but you were simply too busy, so you didn't hear it." Li Moying calmly replied, "Even if you did knock, did your sister-in-law or I allow you to come in?" Luo Yijun helplessly reflected upon his actions. "Senior brother, I'm wrong. Please be magnanimous and forgive me this once." Li Moying noncommittally humphed and spoke, "Why are you still sticking your head around here, trying to see something? Didn't you see your sister-in-law is suffocating inside the blanket?" Luo Jiyun just realized that he had committed another wrong. He shouldn't continue to stick around. He hurriedly replied, "Senior brother, please continue being busy with sister-in-law, do continue. I'll make a move first." Luo Jiyun hastily walked towards the door, and just as he was about to step out of it, he suddenly retracted. With a terrified expression, he still pressed himself to open his mouth. "Ugh, that. Senior brother, junior brother, I have to remind you. You've lost a lot of blood and had fainted for around 7 to 8 days. Your body is still weak and you have yet to take your meals, and you're already so busy. It's really not good. Do you want to have your breakfast first before you continue?" Luo Jiyun felt himself was so great, and honest advice was always unpleasant to the ears. Even if Li Moying would be angry, but as his #1 best junior brother, he ought to remind his senior brother. "You can also listen on." Hearing that, Li Moying's eyebrows twitched and almost flew into a rage. But before he could say anything, Huang Yueli had already threw open the blanket and furiously retorted, "Luo Jiyun. What rubbish are you sprouting? What busy? Speak clearly." Cold sweat formed on the back of Luo Jiyun as he hurriedly gave a dry laugh. Yes, sister-in-law, you're not busy, not busy. Please take your time. I'm leaving now." Saying that, his saws seemed have oil applied to it, and he quickly slipped away. The speed was as if there was a demon chasing him from behind. Huang Yueli almost threw up blood. Judging from Luo Jian's tone, it felt as though the both of them had some hidden secret. Although it's true that the both of them displayed amorous actions, but that should blame Li Moying, the shameless man, and had nothing to do with her at all. Li Moying lowered his head and saw her frustrated look, and his spirits lifted up. Although this little lass was indecisive in staying together with him and often spoke of things which he didn't like to hear, but at least the man beside her now was only him. Besides being in his embrace, she didn't need to go anywhere else. He would not allow this lass to have any chance to fall in love with anyone else. In this way, sooner or later, this little fox would become his. Huang Yueli felt Li Moying's gaze and her face suddenly turned hotter. This man's looks was simply too outstanding. For a man to look like this was a type of sin, especially when his distance was so close, and just focusing all his attention on her made her heartbeat started thumping faster and faster. The curves on Li Moying's lips broke into a smile and he leaned in closer to her yet. Lear, what are you thinking about? Did you feel that it was a waste to have Jiyun break the momentum? Tell me earlier. Don't worry, no matter how much you need, I can satisfy you, and I will definitely take on the burden willingly. Huang Yueli couldn't wait to give him a tight slap. The idiom, a dog's mouth emits no ivory, was exactly describing him. What's the talk about need and satisfaction? Aww. Did he really think she was some simpleton little rabbit and not understand his underlying meaning? She rolled her eyes at Li Moying and said, "Stop sprouting rubbish and quickly get up. Moe and the rest have been very worried about you, and I guess that they had not slept the entire night. Let me go and call them in, and at the same time, get you something to eat." Saying that, she flipped around, got up from the bed and left the room in a few quick steps. This time, Li Moying didn't stand in her way. Because he had some matters that he needed to inquire from Moe and the rest Dan. He didn't want to let Huang Yueli find out about it. Not long after Huang Yueli left, Luo Jiyun, Mo Er and Mo Sen knocked on the door before entering. Luo Jiyun's face displayed some ambiguity and sneakily checked behind Li Moying's back. "Senior brother, has sister-in-law really left?" Li Moying leaned against the bedhead and replied lazily, "Yes, she really left. Do you want to check?" Luo Jiyun quivered and hastily shook his head. No need, I was just casually asking." Casually, Lo Moying raised his eyebrow, but there was no other expression on his face. But Luo Jiyun knew he was slightly unhappy. As for why he was unhappy, it was obvious that it was because he was always joking around with Huang Yueli. Li Moying was the typical hoe before brothers ever since sister-in-law came into the picture. He as a junior brother had degraded to the bitter cauliflower in the vegetable patch. Li Moying took one glance at him and said, "What happened during these days when I was unconscious?" "Moe, we'll start from you. You can also listen on." When Huang Yueli left the room, she went over to call on Moe and the rest. After the few of them had entered Li Moying's room, she turned around and walked to the kitchen to see what was there to eat. Unfortunately, the kitchen on the ship was very small and not much food was prepared. There were only some barbecued pieces of magical beast meat. This type of oily food was not suitable for a patient who was just recuperating from a serious injury. Huang Yueli had no choice but to cook personally. Firstly, she minced some tender chicken meat and adding some spiritual herbs and Saint Spring water, she stewed a small pot of minced meat porridge. After that she found a small bag of flour and made a tray of crystal steamed dumplings. Huang Yueli's cooking skills had always been good. The rationale behind it was purely because of the control of fire. She had outstanding innate skills in the fire attribute, and this directly resulted in her top-notch skills in cookery. However, the number of people who had tried her cooking was extremely little because there were few who were worthy to let her cook for them. In her past life, there was only Mu Qingying. In this life, there was an additional person. Smoke curled upwards, her actions were skilled and elegant, as though it was a hazy painting scroll. As the porridge was cooked using the Saint Spring water, so when it was cooked, the fragrance was extremely strong as the smell slowly drifted out. When Huang Yueli brought the food and cutlery to the room, the door was still tightly shut and the few of them were still conversing. She couldn't make a decision to knock and enter or to wait outside. Just at this moment the door was suddenly opened and Luo Jiyun ran outwards. His mouth was drooling as he stared at the porridge in Huang Yueli's hands. "Sister-in-law, what did you make for senior brother? Isn't it too fragrant?" "I also want to eat." Huang Yueli rolled her eyes at him. "None is for you." "Why?" "Sister-in-law, you cannot be so biased like this, isn't it too obvious? Why is it that senior brother can eat but I cannot? I am also your partner who had already fought alongside with you for the past few days." Huang Yueli replied simply, "He's injured." "But I'm injured too." "Your skin is too thick, just a little injury, you won't die from it." "Stop your superfluous words, help me bring the porridge in." Luo Jiyun took over the tray and puzzledly asked, "Sister-in-law, why are you not bringing it in to senior brother yourself?" Huang Yueli shook her head. "You are in the middle of discussion, I'd better stay away for the time being and not listen in on your conversation. Help me look after Li Moying and make sure he finishes all the food, do you understand?" "Oh," Luo Jiyun nodded. When he brought in the tray of food into the room, everyone's gazes concentrated on the tray that he had brought in. It was because that porridge and the steamed dumplings' fragrance was simply too tempting. Everyone instinctively swallowed back their saliva with their eyes staring at the tray of food. Only Li Moying didn't look at the porridge. Instead his gaze went straight beyond Luo Jiyun. Following that, he discontentedly frowned. Why didn't she come in? Although he didn't say it clearly, everyone knew who he was referring to. Luo Jiyun repeated what Huang Yueli said, word for word. Li Moying snorted coolly and although he didn't express any speech, his heart was filled with discontent. What was she up to? He was talking to his subordinates, what was there to shy away from? He didn't have any secrets that he needed to hide from his own woman. That lass's refusal to enter was obviously trying to distance herself away from him, really. Deserved to be kissed. As some charming scenes flashed in Li Moying's mind, he licked the corners of his lips and commanded Luo Jiyun, bring it over. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun held out the tray slightly. Li Moying stretched his hand outwards to receive it but there was nothing. Not knowing when, Luo Jiyun had held back the tray. Li Moying's cold glint turned towards him. Luo Jiyun gave 2 dry laughs and said, "Senior brother, the food that sister-in-law made smells wonderful. At one glance, you know it tastes yummy, can you share some with us?" Li Moying kept silent and only glared coldly at him, sending the chills down Luo Jiyun's back. Shortly after, Luo Jiyun couldn't bear this huge pressure and totally lost his fort. He obediently passed the tray over. "Senior brother, I was only joking. But this porridge and dumpling, you really can't share a little with us?" "I just wanted to taste a little." Li Moying received the tray and using the spoon, he drank a mouthful of porridge. The other hand was already holding up one dumpling and bringing it to his mouth. An indescribable delicious texture slowly spread inside his mouth, the faint scent infiltrating his individual taste buds. Li Moying couldn't help but shut his eyes. He wasn't very particular in terms of food but tasting the dumpling that Huang Yueli had specially made gave him an indescribable sense of contentment. No matter what type of delicious fare he had taken in the past totally became passing clouds in front of this taste. Li Moying kept silent and as his slender fingers stretched out once more and grabbed another steamed dumpling, his action was slow and graceful. Even if the action of using his fingers to hold the dumpling was coarse, but when he was the one doing it, it was still pleasant to the eye. Luo Jiyun could only stare at him, and the dumpling in his hand. His eager eyes looked as if he was about to pounce to grab the dumpling. Li Moying seemed to sense his gaze, and after he swallowed the second dumpling, he gave him a charitable look. Why? Do you want a bite? Luo Jiyun nodded his head furiously. Not only me, Brother Mo's and the rest also want. Although Moe, Mo Air and Mo San didn't make a sound, the looks on their faces had told the truth. Even after Lo Moying swept them a glance, his fingers stretched out and took a third dumpling. At the same time, his voice slowly rang, "Want to eat? Find yourself a wife. This is what my Lear made for me, so naturally it belongs all to me. Don't even think about it." When he said, "my Lear," his expression looked extremely cocky. That look really deserved some punches. In actual fact, if he wasn't Li Moying, Luo Jiyun would have pounced up and punched him in the face. Damn, did he need it to be like this? He let them smell the food but refused to let them eat. It was evil enough, and Li Moying had to purposely tempt them into thinking that they had an opportunity to have a bite. But he cruelly crushed their last hope. Luo Jiyun could only stared widely at Li Moying chewing the dumplings one after another, and very soon that tray of steamed dumpling were all finished. Following that, Li Moying took up the spoon and started taking the porridge. The fragrance filled the entire room. Luo Jiyun could feel his drool dripping as he cursed at least 1,000 times in his heart. What was so great about having a fiancé? Showing off your love is very glamorous. TSK. He, Luo Jiyun, was also an innately skilled and handsome genius. If he wanted to find a wife, wasn't that an easy task? The only thing was, to be able to find someone as perfect as sister-in-law. There was probably none at all. When he thought about this, Luo Jiyun's face crashed downwards again. You can also listen on. As Li Moying gleefully took his porridge, the sweet taste melted in his mouth. Accompanied with various envy, jealousy, and hatred glares as side dishes, this meal was extremely delightful. Just as the grudges had reached the peak, he finally finished his meal. Li Moying slowly wiped his hands and said, "Where did we stop earlier?" Continue. Continue. Luo Jiyun's face was bitter with unspoken criticism. Senior brother, you are already full, but the rest of us are still hungry. Look at your gleeful smile, was it really okay? Luo Jiyun didn't speak a word, but Moe and the rest were not like haughty as him and continued the topic earlier. With regards to the matter that had happened when he was unconscious, Moe and the rest had already reported what had happened to Li Moying. When he heard the outstanding performance of Huang Yueli, Li Moying didn't show any sense of shock. On the contrary, he reflected a simple smile. His little fox had always been that outstanding. No matter what she did, it wasn't something to be surprised about. But his smile didn't last for a long time, only a couple of seconds, and quickly his expression sunk. The sect had definitely received my call for help, as this flying ship had always been parked in the sect. So Li Lingchuan could not have rushed over from any other place. However, the person who drove the ship over was not the sect's elder but a junior like him. This matter is just too weird. I dare say, something must have happened in the sect. Hearing that, everyone's expressions stiffened. Luo Jiyun replied, if that's the case, the duration when senior brother had left the sect was slightly longer. But I had just departed before the start of the month. I've heard from Master that the some sect from the West Sky region was coming to pay a visit. Because of that, I almost couldn't leave. But I have no idea what happened after that. A sect from the West Sky regions. Which sect is that? Luo Jiyun shook his head. I didn't pay much attention. At that time, I thought it wasn't something that mattered since there were often frequent visits among the big sects. Li Moying kept silent for some time before he decided, looks like I must make a trip back to the sect. Change the direction of the flying ship and go back to the sect directly. But master, your injuries have not fully recovered. If we were to return to the sect and you have to make a move again, then, Moe hesitated. Li Moying replied, no matter. Anyway, even if the flying ship were to fly at the fastest speed, returning back also needs a few days. Now that I have this profound lunar spirit mirror, my soul has stabilized considerably and my recovery has hastened. These few days are enough for me to recover to at least 80% of my original power. Moe was still worried, but as he thought about it, he didn't dissuade any further. Only Luo Jiyun still had his doubts, and wanted to speak but stopped on second thoughts. Little Wu, speak what you have on your mind. Li Moying couldn't stand it anymore. Luo Jiyun hemmed and hawed, senior brother, I don't know if I should say this but I'm really worried. I'm not sure if junior sister had what happened to her. After all, I'm the one who brought her out from the sect, and now that I didn't bring her back, I don't know how furious will master be. Yesterday after the vigorous battle with Li Lingchuan, they only single-mindedly thought of bringing the unconscious Li Moying and run for their lives. No one had remembered Murong and I at all. It was until Li Lingchuan was forced to jump off the ship and after they had steadied their emotions when Luo Jiyun suddenly recalled that he had left their junior sister in the tent. He couldn't calm himself down the entire night as he pondered over this. You can also listen on. Even though Murong and I had a crafty and unruly temper, her character was of poor quality and had done plenty of offensive things to Huang Yueli. She was still everyone's junior sister, and was merely a 16-year-old girl, so naturally Luo Jiyun felt that he had some responsibility towards her. Especially yesterday when Murong and I had ran into the tent, her entire body was covered in blood. It was obvious that she had been beaten up by Huang Yueli, but they didn't know the extent of her injuries. If she was indeed heavily injured, and to make matters worse, she was left alone in the inner zone of the Dark Moon Forest, then Luo Jiyun realized that he would not be able to bear the responsibility if anything had happened to her. Which was why he struggled for a long time and finally he couldn't stop himself from bringing up this matter. Once he spoke out, Li Moying's face darkened and a terrifying chill surrounded all of them. Even the air seemed to become frozen in that instance. Don't mention anything about her in front of me. He spat the words out through his clenched teeth. Luo Jiyun cowered upon seeing his anger, but he mustered up his courage and continued, say. Senior brother, I know she had provoked the scarlet-eyed blood bats which indirectly caused sister-in-law to fall off from the cliff, and she had challenged sister-in-law several times. All these have made you very angry. I too feel she had done wrong. Even if she had to kneel down in front of sister-in-law to apologize, she deserves it. But she is after all master's biological daughter. If anything untoward were to happen to her, how are we going to account to master? Account? Lo Moying's face expressed a cold smile, the chilling glint in his eyes made everyone tremble in fear. From how I see it, it's Murong and I who should give me an explanation. Don't get yourself involved in this matter anymore. Even if Murong and I were to die in the Dark Moon Forest, it's something that she deserved. If master were to ask about it, I will take responsibility for it. It has nothing to do with you. But Luo Jiyun attempted to continue his persuasion. Li Moying had already turned around coldly and he got down from his bed and left in a few big strides out of the room, leaving the rest behind. Luo Jiyun wanted to go after him but was held back by Moe. Young Master Luo, Master is really angry now. Please don't add any more oil to the fire, otherwise. If you were to really make him fume up, you'd gain nothing out of it too. Sigh. Luo Jiyun gloomily expressed, junior sister is still young and thoughtless, so if we want her to do anything to compensate, it should be fine. But we shouldn't just leave her there like that. What if master was to fly into a rage? What would happen to senior brother? Even if it was sister-in-law, she also wouldn't want senior brother to split off from the sect, right? Moe shook his head and said, "Young Master Luo, there are things you didn't know. When third Miss fell off the cliff, it wasn't because she missed her footing. She was pushed down by Miss Murong." "What?" Luo Jiyun's eyes turned wide. How can it be? Why would she do such a thing? Moe continued, "Absolutely right, otherwise, how would such a careful person like third Miss suddenly lose her footing and fell off the cliff?" And when third Miss was refining the armament, Miss Murong knew that her disruption would cause third Miss to go into the state of chi deviation, and yet she intentionally attacked the array. To be able to do such things, wasn't the purpose obvious to want third Miss to end her life? But this, perhaps she didn't do it on purpose, because she didn't know the severity. This kind of words, do you believe it yourself? Moe patted Luo Jiyun on his shoulder. Anyway, you already know third Miss's position in Master's heart. Miss Murong had attempted to harm third Miss so many times, this has already passed the border that Master has set. The fact that he didn't kill her personally was on account of the sect Master's face. You still expect him to go back and save her? Absolutely impossible. You can also listen on. Luo Jiyun hung his head disappointedly, his face pale white as if he had suffered a fatal blow. How did things become like this? Junior sister was very adorable when she was young. Although her character was a bit exaggerated, but I had never expected her to do such vile things. Moe advised, you may know a person for a long time without understanding her true nature. Miss Murong had been spoiled rotten by you bunch of seniors, so this lesson should be good for her. Sigh, seeing him still sighing away, Moe continued, young Master Luo, don't worry. Actually nothing much will happen to Miss Murong. When young Master Li jumped off from the ship, Miss Murong will definitely go and look for him. Luo Jiyun stared blankly for a moment, then set his mind to rest. That was true. That second senior brother, Li Lingchuan, had always laid down everything for the two young misses of the Murong family, so how could he leave Murong and I alone? Saying that, even if she had to suffer a little, her life should be in no danger. On the deck, Huang Yueli stood alone against the railing, looking far away into the distance. The flying ship was shuttling in between the clouds and the speed was pretty fast, flying past the vast forest. There had been 10 days since their arrival before they entered the inner zone. Yet in just one night on the ship, they were about to leave the dark moon forest. It was very quiet on the ship, no one was walking around. Only the cold mist from the clouds brushed against her face and it felt a little wet. Huang Yueli stood there silently, her heart was feeling sentimental. Many years ago, she had crafted a flying ship and with a man, they cruised around. However, it was all in the past now. She instinctively stretched out her finger and touched her swollen lips, which was still a little painful. Lo Moying seemed to have a habit of biting people. Every time she provoked him and he couldn't bear to punish her, he would only vent his anger by biting her gently on her lips. This habit was just like Mu Qingying. These few days, they had met with various mishaps, which led Huang Yueli to be fully occupied. Now that everything was safe and the surroundings had quietened down, she suddenly realized that recently, something was wrong with her. She seemed to be too concerned about Li Moying. This man had a pair of mesmerizing eyes like Mu Qingying, a strong and overbearing character as Mu Qingying, an innate gift which was exceedingly high, and even some of his little habits. This gave Huang Yueli a sense of illusion, as if Mu Qingying was always by her side, and had never left her. This sweet illusion allowed Huang Yueli to slowly sink in, and unknowingly, they had become very close. Towards the embrace from this man, she didn't resist, and even towards his kisses, she would frequently give a response. Especially the moment when Li Moying pounced towards her to protect her with his life in Master Yun Tian's cave, at that moment, she had truly been touched by Li Moying. Sometimes, Huang Yueli thought she was really going crazy. No matter how much Li Moying was like Mu Qingying, they were entirely different people. Just because they look alike, how could she even betray Mu Qingying, as though she was possessed? But they were really too alike. To the state that at some point, she was unable to differentiate between the two of them. Huang Yuele heaved a deep sigh in an attempt to get Li Moying out of her mind. Mu Qingying, the #1 exponent of the soaring heavens continent, where was he now? Was he still in Sky Emperor City, or had he made a breakthrough in these 10 over years? By his side, was he still surrounded by the women who lusted for him? Why is it that when someone asked if person A and person B are the same person, I would be unable to speak out clearly? You can also listen on. Just as Huang Yueli was letting her imagination roam freely, a scorching warm chest plastered against her back. Without waiting for her response, a pair of sturdy arms held her around her waist and locked her into an embrace. Lear, why are you stoning here alone? Why didn't you send me the food personally? A familiar low-pitched hoarse voice rang beside her ear, with some sense of temptation. Huang Yueli shockingly turned around. Li Moying. The man showed a sign of unhappiness at her shocked expression. Why this shocked expression? Besides me, who else would it be? Huang Yueli shook her head. Nothing. Have you finished your discussion with Moe and the rest? Earlier, she really did have a misperception because Mu Qingying had the exact same habit of suddenly hugging her from behind when she was in a daze, leaving her with no chance of hiding. It was obvious that she had thought too much. Li Moying felt that the little lass in her embrace didn't feel too right, and after staring at her for a little while, he continued, there was nothing much in the first place, so the discussion ended quickly. Actually, you didn't need to stay away, there was nothing that I have to hide from you. Huang Yueli shrugged her shoulders, but I have no interest in your sex matters. Saying that, she attempted to pull away from Li Moying's arms, but that man's strength was huge. After expending some effort, she was still unable to get away. Li Moying, let go of me first. It won't be nice if we were seen by other people, okay? Instead of releasing her, Li Moying held her even more tightly after he heard what she said. What's there to be afraid of? The people on this ship, who would dare to talk nonsense? Besides, it's entirely justified for me to be hugging my fiancé. Can your face be any thicker? Huang Yueli was exasperated. No matter how black-bellied and craft she was, or how witty she was, every single time she encountered this overbearing, senseless, black-bellied man, no matter what moves she made, it all ended up in defeat. Li Moying coldly snorted and his glance fell upon her delicate little face. His voice went dangerously low. Lear, I feel that something is wrong with you today. You seem to be pulling a distance away from me. Why? Moe and the rest told me that when I was unconscious, you were even more anxious than them, taking care of me personally to the extent of not even leaving more than a step. Why is it that after I have awoke, you are trying all means to avoid me? When did I avoid you? This is all your misconception. Don't frame me. Huang Yueli bit her lips as she explained. How was she going to explain all these? The awoken Li Moying and the unconscious Li Moying were obviously different. When she was taking care of the unconscious him, she could say that it was to repay him for saving her, but if she were to continue entangling with the conscious him, this would send her into an abyss of entanglement and confusion. Li Moying's hand on her slender waist became tighter and gave her a pinch on her waist. Huang Yueli felt pain from the pinch and softly gave a sigh. Li Moying released his grip slightly, but his arm was still held around her waist, not letting go. Huang Yueli knew that even if she struggled, she was not able to get away. So she might as well not move. In this way, she could hypnotize herself to hide in this embrace because this man was forcing her to, and not out of her own will. In actual fact, only she alone knew that Li Moying's broad chest was only gentle to her, and it gave out an illusion of a strange sense of familiarity. That overbearing presence left her feeling extremely relieved. You can also listen on. Li Moying saw that she stopped struggling and his mood was instantly lifted, still embracing her in arms for some moments. The both of them gazed together at the misty clouds as a streak of morning rays peeked out from the clouds, faintly discernible. After some time, Li Moying spoke out, "In 1 more hour, 100 miles northwards, we will be entering the boundary of the South Yu Kingdom. You'll alight from the ship when time has reached." Huang Yueli was startled and gave him a surprised look. "I alight from the ship at South Yu Kingdom, only me?" Li Moying nodded, "That's right. I must return to the sect directly and cannot stay with you." "My apologies, Lear." He looked at Huang Yueli apologetically. An indescribable feeling grew inside Huang Yueli. She had never expected that Li Moying would take the initiative and suggested the separation. What's more, it was at such an unexpected moment, so sudden, and it had caught her unaware. In actual fact, she should be feeling happy over this, as Li Moying would no longer pester her. She would no longer be caught in a dilemma and her emotions would not sway because of his overbearing yet gentle ways. Her heart already belonged to someone else and it shouldn't flutter just because of Li Moying's proximity. However, the truth was, upon hearing Li Moying telling her to alight from the ship, it wasn't happiness that flowed into her emotions but rather frustration and unhappiness surfaced, similar to the feeling of being abandoned. Heavens knows, Li Moying really wasn't anyone to her and she had never accepted him, so what was there to feel uncomfortable about? She took a deep breath and quickly hid the fluctuations of her emotions before affirming, "All right, I understand. I had intended to alight when the ship arrives at South Yu Kingdom and I still have a lot of other things to work on, so I am unable to go to your sect with you. Anyway, I'm not a disciple from your sect, so if I, as an outsider, were to go over, it would make things difficult for you, right?" Li Moying thought she was angry and quickly tried to explain. "Lear, I don't have any intention to abandon you, and you're no outsider. You're my fiancé. In future, if you visit my sect, I guarantee that everyone will show you the due respect." It was only the appearance of Li Lingchuan yesterday that I realized that something might have happened in the sect, so I must hurry back to take a look. The problem is we are still unaware of the entire situation and I'm worried that there may be potential dangers. If I were to bring you along and something happens to you, I will never be able to forgive myself. So I can only let you stay in the South Yu Kingdom for now. At least if it's within the kingdom, no one would dare to play punk with you. After I have ascertained that nothing has happened in the sect, I will immediately come over to look for you. After Huang Yueli heard his explanation, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Most the unhappiness in her heart momentarily dissipated. Following that, she immediately spurned herself. What was she feeling happy about? Li Moying's constant worrying for her and his reluctance to give up was something that she should be vexing about instead. She bit her lips lightly and replied softly, You don't need to look for me, I'm not concerned at all. It would be best if you don't come." When Li Moying heard that, fury started burning up within him. He turned her around and locked her shoulders before trapping her cherry lips, not wanting to hear any unpleasant words coming out from her delicate lips. This kiss came threateningly, almost causing Huang Yueli to stop breathing. By the time she was released, she finally realized that her arms, unknowingly, had wrapped around Li Moying's neck and was in a position where she was obediently waiting to be kissed. You can also listen on. Li Moying raised his head slightly and locking her arms in front of him, he said in a love-hate tone, "You little thing with no conscience, every day you must conjure different ways to drive me up the wall." Huang Yueli was vexed to the peak. What happened to her? Why was she easily settled with just a kiss from him? She used her might and pushed Li Moying from advancing. "You're too much, I've told you that you cannot just kiss me without notice." Li Moying raised his brow. Although he was rejected, but he was not upset. Because in that earlier passionate kiss, Wang Yueli had unknowingly accepted it, which deeply delighted him. And he had heard from Moe that when he was unconscious, Wang Yueli had shown different ways of protecting him. This little lass must be feeling shy. That right, this little fox was just 14 and had yet to reach the marriageable age, so to show resistance towards relations between the two sexes was perfectly normal. Anyway, what he had were time and patience, so he need not push her too hard now. He can slowly, bit by bit, tear her down and digest her up. That would be another type of feeling. As Li Moying thought of these, he released his grip slightly and tried to amuse her. All right, don't be angry. You'll turn ugly when you are angry. These few days must have tired you out, right? Go rest a little in the cabin. When we have reached to South Yu Kingdom, I'll wake you up. Huang Yueli nodded and turned to leave. South Yu Kingdom, capital. A lavish carriage went through the city gates, and as it traveled along the bustling and wide road, the sound of clopping against the ground was heard. The carriage's speed was extremely fast, the surrounding vendors nearby were not able to avoid in time and were sent reeling onto the ground. It was only when the carriage reached the doors of the royal palace before it came to a stop. The palace guards frowned, with an unpleasant expression. For many years, there was no one who had dared to rush head into the doors of the royal palace. Even a revered minister such as the valiant Marshal Marquis would stop their carriage 3 miles before the palace gates. However, the person inside the carriage had not only stopped short of a few steps in front of the palace doors, and was still seated comfortably inside the carriage, showing no intention to alight. Who on earth was it who could be so arrogant and despotic? The Imperial Guard commander stepped forward and interrogated, "Who is that? How dare you rush towards the doors of the royal palace? What punishment do you think you deserve?" The coachman had no intention of answering them. Instead, he stepped down from the carriage and bowing courteously, he lifted the curtains. Behind the curtains peeked out a dainty hand, following that, a young lady slowly descended. Her looks were dainty, and an air of elegance eluded from her. She pursed her lips as though something was upsetting her. You, the Imperial Guard commander formed a guess from one glance. The coachman impatiently whipped him, retorting, "Are you blind? This is our 7th princess. Why aren't you sending someone to inform Her Majesty?" The Imperial Guard commander hurriedly knelt down, "Greetings to 7th princess." The news that the 7th princess had returned quickly reached the ears of the empress. When she heard the news, she agitatedly stood up from her seat, her eyes seemingly shedding some tears of joy. "My little 7 is finally back, finally back. I have been waiting for such a long time. Mo Jun had been paralyzed in bed for so long, until now there are no signs of recuperation. If little 7 is still not bad, I really have no idea what to do. Quickly, bring the 7th princess to my palace, and inform the crown prince of the return of the 7th princess. You can also listen on." The 7th princess, Li Shuer, was brought to the empress's palace immediately. When the empress saw her, her tears couldn't stop flowing. Little 7, anxiety spread all over Li Shuer's face, and when she saw the empress sobbing, she hurriedly rushed up to help her up. "Mother, what happened? Stop crying. When I received your letters, it wasn't stated very clearly. What exactly happened? Why did royal brother suddenly get injured, to the extent of rupturing his meridians? In the South Yu Kingdom, who else would be able to hurt him?" The empress choked and fighting back her tears, receiving a silken handkerchief from the palace maid, she simply briefed the happenings as she dabbed her face. "It's a long story, till today, I still find it unbelievable. That day, at the peach blossom banquet held by the Empress Dowager, the more Li Shuai heard, the more shocked she received as her eyes grew exceedingly large till her eyeballs almost dropped out from its sockets. "Mother, you, say it once again. Who did you say injured royal brother?" The Empress was unable to suppress her hatred. "Who else? It's the second prince that the hussy had given birth to, Li Moying." Li Shuai was still in a state of shock as she blinked her eyes. She felt that she must have misheard somewhere along the line. "Mother, you are saying second brother injured royal brother. Am I hearing things? How can this be possible? Second brother had always been weak from birth. Not only can he not cultivate, what's more, wasn't he about to lose his life any time? Where on earth would he have such abilities to injure royal brother who was in the defensive profound realm, 7th stage? The Empress clenched her teeth as she spoke. He's no wastrel. He had all of us completely fooled. In actuality, his cultivation was so high that not only did he injure your royal brother, even the imperial tutor was inflicted serious damage. He had rested for half a month and it was only these few days that he recovered slightly. How could this be? I must still be dreaming. 7th princess pinched herself hard on her thigh and immediately shrieked in pain. I'm not in a dream, don't tell me this is for real. The Empress responded, I too wish that this is not real. But alas, this matter cannot be truer than a pearl. Your royal brother is now severely injured. Not only is the medical institute not able to cure him, even the divine doctors from our neighboring countries whom I had painstakingly invited, are able to cure him. Saying to this point, the Empress started to be agitated and grabbed hard on Li Shuai's arm. Shuai, your royal brother said if we brought you back here, perhaps you will have a way to save him. Is this true? Do you really have a way? Your royal brother is now depending on you. If you too do not have a way to save him, then he's really a goner. Li Shuai frowned and patted the Empress's hands. Mother, please don't fret. Your daughter will not leave my royal brother like this. But, you mentioned that second brother had suddenly become a top-notch pugilist, and even injured royal brother and imperial tutor. This is preposterous. Sigh, you little ass. It's better that you take a look at your royal brother with your own eyes. By then, you will realize what had happened. Li Shuai followed the Empress into the sleeping chambers behind. Upon opening the door, a piercing alcoholic smell whiffed out, mixing with a strange sourish smell. The odor was unbearable. Li Shuai subconsciously covered her nose and frowned. The Empress used her hanky to cover her mouth and said, Ma Juan, why have you started drinking again? You can also listen on. The room fell silent, no one answered. The Empress sighed inwardly, her feelings weighted down. Ever since Li Moying had severed all the meridians in his body, the Crown Prince's cultivation had dropped from heavens to hell, and he was totally unable to cultivate at all. The minute he tried to summon his qi, all the meridians that were severed summoned excruciating pain, to the extent of fainting of the spot. Because of this, the Emperor and Empress had sourced for all the renowned doctors. However, everyone's conclusion were the same. With such a serious injury, they would need the bone vessel replenishment pill, a 5th-grade pill, which could extend and replenish the arteries and veins before he could be cured. And within 3 months, if they were unable to find this bone vessel replenishment pill, he would be deemed paralyzed forever. Not even considering the ability to cultivate, he might even be paralyzed and confined to the bed for the rest of his life. Even though this pill was not expensive, it was extremely rare. The Empress had sent her aides to surrounding countries to search for this pill until today, she had yet to be able to find it. In the end, she could only send someone to the Sky Cloud City to see if they had any other avenues. The problem was, the entire journey to and fro would take at least 2 months, and they might not be able to find the pill. When the Crown Prince found out about this, he was crushed entirely. He would drink continuously every day while lying on the bed, and making himself completely drunk. Using alcohol as an avenue to escape the reality of becoming paralyzed. As a mother, the Empress felt indescribable pain tearing at her heart when she saw the Crown Prince in this state. Thinking back to the days when the Crown Prince was full of mettle and was the #1 genius of the South U Kingdom, his resolutely powerful prince had always been held to the skies. All the ladies in the country thought it would be the ultimate glory to be able to be married to him. But now, not only was he rejected by Huang Yueli, even the person whom he had always looked down upon stole his love away. What's more, Li Moying had not only stolen away his fiancée, he had easily defeated him as though he was crushing an ant, in front of everyone. Besides that, he had viciously maimed him. Not only did the Crown Prince need to suffer from the pain and torture from his injuries, the thing that he could not stand was his pride, and face was entirely stepped upon by Li Moying. Now, who would still remember him, Li Majuan? In the entire South U Kingdom, it was now widely known that Prince Yu Wang's elegant pose during the Peach Blossom Banquet, Prince Yu Wang's absolute power and handsome looks, and his overbearing love and fury for a beautiful woman. What about Li Majuan? Although the emperor had yet to decree the imperial edict to depose the crown prince, but in everyone's eyes, he was no different from a dead person. The empress called out a few more times and there was still no reply. Instead there was only clear shattering sounds of wine flasks dropping onto the ground. She could only cry out, "Majuan, mother is coming in. Stop drinking. Take a look at who's coming in. It's little Seven, she's back. Haven't you been waiting for her return? Now that she's back, there's hope for you, so stop being despondent." What? Little Seven is finally back. A surprised and happy cheer echoed from the room. Li Shuer rushed into the bedside and looked at the crown prince, paralyzed on the bed with a disheartened expression, as she unbelievably covered her mouth. This royal brother of hers had always been high-spirited, having an elegant and graceful carriage. He was also known as a handsome youth in the Celestial Light Academy. But now, he had this half-dead look, as though he had already lost all hopes for the future. Even though she had heard the Empress saying this earlier, but to see it with her own eyes, the impact was much stronger by several folds. Within her heart, Li Shuer flew into a huge rage. You can also listen on. Royal brother, how did you end up like this? What exactly happened? Li Shuer's face was filled entirely with shock. Crown Prince stared at her and speaking through his clenched teeth, every single word hissed out from the gaps in between his teeth. Li Moying. It was entirely Li Moying's fault that I became like this. I must quickly recover and think of ways to kill him, and grind his bones into ashes. Oh, that's right, there's another person, and that's Bai Ruoli, that slut. If not for her, I wouldn't have ended up in such a terrible state. Li Shuer stood dumbstruck. Bai Ruoli. The person you're talking about is Bai Lu Feng's daughter, that trashy third miss at Valiant Marshall Manor. That's her. Crown Prince venomously hissed, she's no trash at all and she's now at Chi Profound Realm, 9 level. What's more, she had long been in cahoots with Li Moying, making me wear the green hat, that fickle woman. It was all the Crown Prince's own fault that he was the one who refused to admit the engagement initially, fully intending to marry Bai Ruoqi instead. And this entire thing had nothing to do with Huang Yueli at all, but Crown Prince would never think in this way. In his wishful thinking, he had chosen Huang Yueli but she had refused the marriage with him. To make matters worse, she had gotten herself engaged to his biggest foe Li Moying. This was her betrayal to him. Li Shuer's face flashed hints of viciousness. Wasn't it just the Chi Profound Realm 9 level? What's so great about that? Royal brother, don't worry. Just nice, I have here with me a bone vessel replenishment pill. It will be able to treat your meridians. As for those cheap sluts, whoever dares to go against us will only await a tragic end. Another night had passed. The sky was slowly breaking into dawn. A huge flying ship gradually descended on the wilderness of the South U Kingdom's outskirts. That scene was witnessed by the surrounding civilians and caused a huge commotion and many spectators to surround nearby. In a small country like the South U Kingdom, there had never been an appearance of a flying ship, to the extent of not even hearing about it. Only seasoned practitioners had only seen a sketch of the flying ship from a painting and had never encountered the real deal. Even so, all the spectators only dared to see it from afar, not daring to go any closer. It was obvious that to be able to own a flying ship, it would naturally be some shocking peerless expert. Who would dare to risk offending such a powerful person and go nearer to take a look? On the deck of the flying ship, Li Moying personally sent Huang Yueli down from the ship. The both of them walked alongside on the deck all the way to the ramp before they stopped. You, both of them turned towards each other at the same timing and spoke out. After a moment of astonishment, Li Moying's lips curled upwards, the sharp blossom-shaped eyes showed a hint of gentleness. Lear, what were you going to say? Huang Yueli pursed her lips and said in a low tone, nothing, then I'm leaving now. Li Moying stared at her, and said in a dissatisfied tone, what? Are these really what you wanted to say? Huang Yueli nodded, yup. Is there really nothing else? Li Moying was extremely discontented, continued his unforgiving questioning. Huang Yueli looked at his arrogant expression and suddenly felt it was slightly comical. Such a cool and overbearing man, in front of others, he held an aloof and desolate look, but in front of her, he was actually very cute. Her heart softened in thinking that since it would be some time before they met again, so she put down her proud facade. You have to take note of your own safety. I know your power is very strong and you're not afraid of any danger, but it doesn't hurt to be more prudent. You never know when the ship will overturn in a moment of negligence. By then you'd have suffered a loss. You can also listen on. One more thing, make sure you always carry the profound lunar spirit mirror on you. The wine that I fermented with the Saint Spring water, you must drink it every day. Although the effect is not that obvious now, but if you persevere, it would definitely be advantageous. Another thing is during the night of the full moon, you must never be alone. The pills that divine Dr. Liu had refined, remember to take it on time. If the accident like what happened a few days ago, happens again, it will make everyone worried about you and your body is also not able to take the stress from this. Oh yes, any idea what happened to Li Lingchuan? Although he is a 6th degree realm practitioner, even if he jumped from the flying ship, he should not die from it. He will definitely go and look for you, so you must take caution. Huang Yueli had only intended to bid him with one sentence, take caution on everything, but who knew once she started, she suddenly worried about plenty of other things. So she started to brief about this and that, and unknowingly, she had said a bunch of stuff. Li Moying looked at her as his smile grew wider and wider. Sensing the man's gaze, Huang Yueli suddenly brought herself to a halt, looking very embarrassed. All right, that's about it. I'll just stop here for now. Hey, why are you staring at me for? And you keep chuckling. What's so funny for you to keep laughing? Li Moying couldn't stop himself from laughing out loud, but when he saw Huang Yueli's utterly discomfited look paired with her eyes rolling up, he gave out a stifled cough and finally stopped. I was smiling because I thought you were just too lovely. Huang Yueli pouted her lips and ignored him, so Li Moying hurriedly explained himself. It's true, Lear. I just discovered that you're actually very meticulous and virtuous. You had already thought of everything for me. In future when we get married, you'd definitely be a thoughtful wife. I feel that I'm the luckiest man on earth, so happiness shot up to my head and I was smiling all ears because of that. Lucky. Lucky your big head. When did I agree to marry you? Huang Yueli stomped her feet, feeling that her top of head was going to shoot out fumes very soon. Li Moying mumbled, didn't you? You were obviously admitting it in front of everyone else that you're my fiancé. That was just an advantageous ploy. How many times do you want me to repeat it? Huang Yueli glared at him. Li Moying could only snub his nose and replied, all right, an advantageous ploy. He was plotting in his heart to turn a drama into reality. What's more, their engagement was not fake. Anyway, he should just register the fiancé status first before they actually went further. By the time Huang Yueli had accustomed to his presence, how would she be able to fly out of his palms in future? Upon seeing that he had admitted his mistake, Huang Yueli pursed her lips and said, as long as you don't sprout rubbish. Then I'm really making a move now. Good. Before she could complete her sentence, Huang Yueli felt a pulling sensation from behind. Li Moying had pulled her into his embrace and lowering his chin, he teased smilingly, just going to say goodbye in this fashion. Lear, you seem to have forgotten something. What? Huang Yueli looked at the peerless appearance that had gathered in front of her, and felt slightly faint. Li Moying replied, when couples bid farewell, don't they always end with a goodbye kiss? Goodbye. Kiss. Huang Yueli suddenly retracted her thoughts and retorted, kiss what goodbye? I told you already, we're not a real coup. When he heard the words that he didn't like to hear, Li Moying lowered his head hastily and used his lips to stuff the words back into her mouth. However, this kiss only lasted briefly. Li Moying lowered his head, their lips barely touched with a half-hearted attempt. The cool and sexy lips and a pair of delicate and tender pink lips had briefly touched each other and came apart. You can also listen on. This action disappeared in time. Huang Yueli was barely aware that she had been forcefully kissed again and had yet to express her displeasure, and it had all ended. Li Moying gently let her go and said, this is considered as bidding farewell. Shameless. Huang Yueli glared. Li Moying gave a perfunctory expression as he gave a demonic grin. On the handsome face showed signs of devilish glints which eluded indescribable sexiness. Huang Yueli puckered her lips and lowered her head. Li Moying released the arm that had restrained her and in a low voice, he reminded, all right, it's late already, I shouldn't keep you here. Quickly go back and have a good rest. Wait for me, I'll definitely be back to look for you. Huang Yueli thought to herself that perhaps she might not stay in South Yu Kingdom for long. By the time Li Moying came to look for her, he might not be able to find her. But she didn't tell him her thoughts and simply nodded before she turned around and got descended from the stairs. If she cannot be found and the connection had been broken, perhaps, it wasn't a bad thing after all. As Huang Yueli thought about this, her heart flashed an indescribable sense of disappointment. As she reached the last rung of steps, she couldn't help but to turn around to take another look at Li Moying. Li Moying raised his brow as he said, what's wrong? Can't bear to part with me? Huang Yueli shook her head, you're too narcissistic. I just wanted to ask, brother Moe. What's up with him? She raised her finger and pointed towards Moe, who was standing nearby. Ever since she had started walking from the deck, Moe had been following her footsteps. Initially, she thought Moe was following Li Moying and didn't put it to heart. But she didn't expect that once she got off the ship, Moe actually followed her. Li Moying explained, Moe will follow you and be responsible for your safety. Otherwise I'll be worried when I am not by your side. Huang Yueli was dumbstruck, and felt touched in her heart. This man had really considered everything in her best interest, but there's no need. I'm in the South Yu Kingdom, what dangers could there possibly be? At most it's just that Crown Prince and Bai Ruoqi, those clumsy clowns. I can handle them alone. On the contrary, you're going to the sect and who knows what dangers is lurking over there. Let Moe stay with you instead. Li Moying shook his head, listen to me. Let Moe stay with you. Alright, I have to continue with my journey, I'll make a move first. Saying that, the flying ship stairs slowly retracted and the ship slowly rose as it stayed afloat in the sky. He simply left Moe on the ground. Huang Yueli cannot help but shook her head, knowing she was unable to reject him. This man was always like this. When he treats someone well, he would never allow any form of rejection and the other party must accept his kindness. Besides, even if she refused, Moe would still follow her in secret, to fulfill Li Moying's order. She could only turn around and conveyed, Brother Moe, in this duration. I will have to trouble you again. Moe lowered his head and in a respectful manner, to render my services for third miss is something that your subordinate should do. Huang Yueli nodded and together, they walked towards the direction of the city. Hanging lowly among the clouds, the flying ship hovered in mid-air, in no hurry to fly away. Li Moying leaned against the pole and as he watched that slender figure slowly walked far away until her shadow had completed disappeared into the city before he raised his head and softly commanded, let's start on our journey. Huang Yueli entered the city and directly returned to the Valiant Martial Manor. Inside the manor, lights lit up brightly. And outside the entrance of the manor, the traffic flowed unendingly, bustling with noise and excitement. There were many rich visitors, and in their arms were gifts of all sorts, delivering the gifts to the doorstep with an adulate expression. You can also listen on. Seeing the current situation, Huang Yueli's eyebrow was raised as a puzzled feeling came over her. Before she had gone to the Dark Moon Forest, she had already ordered by Lu Jing's entire family to move to the side manor and emptied the Valiant Martial Manor. But because she had yet to move into her new home completely and the meeting time with Li Moying was up, she rushed to the Dark Moon Forest immediately and left only Kai Wei and the rest to oversee the moving of Bai Lu Jing. From the looks of this, the bustling scenario of the Valiant Martial Manor, it was obvious that her words had fell on deaf ears. Huang Yueli was sneering icily in her heart as she entered the manor in huge strides along with Moe. However, the minute she entered the main gate, she was blocked by the crowd. The gatekeeper of the Valiant Martial Manor was newly hired and he did not recognize her. Seeing her appearing empty-handed, he immediately shouted in a high-pitched tone, "Hey, that little lass in front, halt. Do you know what place is this? This is the Valiant Martial Manor. It's not a place where you can simply enter indiscriminately. Aren't you going to move aside?" Huang Yueli's lips hooked upwards coldly, "You're asking me to move aside. Do you know who I am? Who else can you be? Aren't you here to congratulate our Marquis on his birthday celebrations?" The gatekeeper scorned, "No matter which family's daughter you're from, in the eyes of our Valiant Martial Manor, you're just an ordinary visitor. Do you know who our Marquis is? Marquis Bai's niece, Miss Bai Ruoqi, if Prince Yuang's fiancée. And what's more, she is an heavenly 6th grade talent." Huang Yueli almost laughed out, "You know who is Prince Yuang? You know the third miss of the Bai family." The gatekeeper's gaze seemed to be looking at an idiot. "Why would I not know? Who doesn't know Prince Yuang is the most powerful talent in the entire kingdom's history since he was born, even Bai Lu Feng would not be able to surpass him. Besides that, Prince Yuang's looks are outstanding, his backing is powerful and he is the emperor's favorite. He will replace the crown prince in time to come. TSK, such a honorable Prince Yuang, paired with our manor's beautiful and outstanding third miss, it's a match made in heaven." Third miss had lost her parents since young and it was our Marquis who had painstakingly brought her up. So the Marquis was equivalent to the third Miss's biological father. Now that third Miss had become Prince Yuang's fiancé, our Marquis is the future imperial uncle. Such an honorable standing, who wouldn't want to win his favor? When Huang Yueli heard those words, she felt nauseated, totally disgusted to the extreme. How did Bai Lu Jing treat her during that year? He was simply pushing her to her deathbed. In order to obtain Bai Lu Feng's inheritance, he allowed his lady and Bai Ruo Qi to torture her. If it wasn't for her lucky stars, she would have been dead long ago. With this, he had the cheek to claim that he was like his biological father, using her fame to enjoy the respect from everyone. This wishful daydream was very much pretty. Huang Yueli's face darkened and retorted, "Are you done talking? If you're done, move aside." The gatekeeper was used to be ostentatious and didn't know how to observe the expressions of other people. He totally missed the warning signs and continued to boast. I say, this lady, I can tell that you come from a well-to-do family, but why are you so insensible? Today is our Marquis's birthday and all the visitors are here to send in their congratulatory messages and have all brought along valuable gifts. You came empty-handed and you're not embarrassed to just come in like this. Huang Yueli slowly turned towards him, her glare icy cold. What, you're asking me about my gift? You can also listen on. Towards the icy cold expression in Huang Yueli's eyes, the gatekeeper suddenly sobered up. He finally realized that something was not right. This seemingly ordinary young lady seemed extremely complicated. She couldn't be here to kiss up a fuss, right? Arg, this miss. The gatekeeper cannot help to take a step backwards as he wiped the sweat on his forehead. Huang Yueli laughed icily and turning towards Moe, who was standing behind, she asked, "Where's the soaring heavens sword that I had refined previously?" Moe drew out a flexible sword from his realm ring and respectfully handed it over to Huang Yueli. "Third Miss, please take a look." Before she entered the Dark Moon Forest, she had refined several profound weapons, with the consideration to distribute among Li Moying's bodyguards. Those extra ones would be auctioned off at the Thousand Treasure Pavilion. This flexible sword was gifted to Moe. Precisely because this sword was not only pliable and tough, it was also long and slender with a silverish color, named Soaring Heavens, was a fourth-grade upper-grade armament. Huang Yueli swept her gaze over the flexible sword and asked the gatekeeper, "How is it? This gift is pretty good, right?" Although the gatekeeper was a snob and had not seen too much of the world, but this sword emitted a special feeling from the others. Just by looking at the appearance, even an ordinary person would be able to judge that this was an extremely high-grade quality profound armament. As for the surrounding practitioners, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets and everyone were secretly discussing where did a rich tycoon suddenly popped out to have delivered such a priceless treasure. The gatekeeper hurriedly replied, "Not bad, not bad, Miss is indeed generous." Huang Yueli's lips slightly curled as she turned her head towards Moe and said, "Reward him." The gatekeeper was dumbstruck and an overwhelming delight rushed into him. Reward him? Did the lady mean to gift him such a valuable flexible sword as a reward? What background did this lass come from, to be such a spendthrift? Couldn't she tell that this sword was extremely valuable? This time he had really met a nobleman. Heaven actually gave him such a good opportunity. The gatekeeper was all smiles as he prepared to receive his reward. Suddenly a glint of light flashed past him, fast as lightning. He felt a throbbing pain on his head as if his brain had been sliced into two halves, and immediately lost conscious. Amongst the crowd, the gatekeeper's body flew outwards, into the valiant Marshal Manor's pavilion, directly into the main hall and crashed heavily onto the ground. His face had a deep scar from the sword, all the way from the roof of his head passing his nose bridge, chin till his waist. Wherever the scar ran across, His flesh split apart and blood sprayed everywhere with his bones exposed. A terrified expression hung on the crowd's face as they looked at Moe. Moe's hand was still holding on to the flexible sword stained with blood, but his expression remained peaceful as if he had just patted the dust off, and not soberly injuring a person viciously. This method and this stance. Everyone gave a shudder and ran backwards in shock. Moe bowed at Huang Yueli and reported, "Third miss, I've rewarded him with a sword, but that guy didn't seem to have the fortune of accepting your reward." Huang Yueli laughed lightly, "Well executed. Although his fortune was bleak, we can still reward his master later on. It's all the same." "Yes, your subordinate obeys third miss's orders." Saying that, a shuffling of footsteps can be heard from the direction of the main hall. Bai Lu Jing appeared headfirst, furiously berating, "Who dares to create havoc at the valiant martial manor? Come out before me this instant. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli's back was still facing the main hall, so Bai Lu Jing had not recognized her at the first instance. Seeing that the opponent had not only injured the people in his residence, that person was totally ignoring him made Bai Lu Jing even more enraged. He heavily swept his sleeves and in an enraged tone, he shouted, "What kind of place did you think the valiant martial manor is? I think you must have a lot of guts to even dare to make a scene here. Men, take this fool down. Let's see who is more arrogant." Bai Lu Jing turned around and upon his command, the guards in the manor responded by charging towards Huang Yueli and Moe. As the person who was injured was a gatekeeper, who was a normal person with no cultivation, the manor's guards' confidence raised, believing that they were proud practitioners who had helmed in various battles. With their mountainous experience, to take down a petty thief who was causing the disturbance was surely as easy as frying up a small plate of appetizer. However, the truth was the exact opposite. As the guards rushed out, before they could even reach a distance of 100 meters, a silvery glint flashed past. Following that was a continuous thud 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 sound. All the guards were, at the same time, flying towards the direction of the main hall. Moreover, every single one of them by lucky coincidence had fallen into the main hall, stacking nicely on top of each other, blocking the entire entrance. The remaining few were unable to fit in, so as they crashed on top of the human pile, it subsequently fell out from the door. Similar to the gatekeeper earlier, right in the middle of their faces displayed a long gaping wound which was inflicted by the soaring heaven's flexible sword. With their bloody faces along with the wound which revealed the whites of their bones, it looked extremely horrifying. There were quite a number of guests who had come for the celebratory event in the main hall, who were terrified by this scene. Shrill cries and screams could be heard constantly. At this moment, Huang Yueli turned around and looked towards the direction of the door. Following that, she took a glance at Moe and with an unpleasant look, she said, "I don't recall the order to reward them, right? Isn't it a waste to reward these garbage?" Moe immediately took a step backwards and replied with a guilty look, "Why, yes, your subordinate was too nosy. Third miss, please punish me." Huang Yueli waved her hand as she replied, "Sigh, forget it. Next time be more attentive." "Yes, your subordinate understands." Hearing the two of them conversing, the surrounding people reached a peak of silence. So the flexible sword stabbing was called as a reward. And not everyone had this privilege. This type of reward, who would dare and be able to accept it? Of course, what was more flabbergasting was that seemingly ordinary guard in black clothes held extreme power. Everyone present had heard that the guards at the valiant martial manor were all experienced in various battles and not many had dared to provoke them. In the end, so many people were sent flying by just one person. And they were powerlessly oppressed. In one single move, all the guards had been seriously injured. This was really terrifying. And to be able to use such a powerful practitioner as her guard, Who and what was this young lady's background? As the crowd looked at Huang Yueli, a few were already able to recognize her. That is the third Miss of the Bai family. It's Bai Ruoli. That's right, after what you mentioned, I also managed to recognize her. It's really her. Oh, it's her. No wonder she has such a powerful bodyguard. But why did she injure the valiant Marshal Manor's guards? Isn't the Marquis her uncle? A puzzled bystander inquired. The people next to him secretly stole a glance at Bai Qiujing and intentionally lowered his voice as he spoke. It's something that most people didn't know. It was said that Marquis was biased to his daughter, and in the past they had their share in bullying the third Mississippi. So both parties were no different from enemies. You can also listen on. Ha! There's such a thing. I thought that the relationship between the Marquis and third Miss was very close. If I had knew this earlier, I wouldn't have bothered to offer my birthday congratulations to that filthy old man. He only know how to put on airs. Who does he think he is? Once the crowd found out the truth, they were extremely vexed and felt they were being fooled. He made an prompt and immediate decision, turned around and left. Upon seeing him, the other remaining visitors suddenly woke up to reality. That's right. Wasn't our intention here to deliver the gifts just to please Prince Yuang? In the end, the flattery had fallen on the hooves of the horse. What would happen if Prince Yuang thinks that we are intentionally going against him? Let's hurry and leave. I'm going too. This sinister and deceitful cad, Bai Lu Jing, he actually misled us intentionally. If Prince Yuang were to blame us for this, I will definitely have no end with Bai Lu Jing. Exactly, that's right. As the crowd agreed in unison, the gazes towards Bai Lu Jing held contempt and hatred, their face steely green as they turned and left. Before they left, many visitors had not forgotten to claim back their gifts which they had brought when they had registered at the entrance of the door. We cannot let that old fool surnamed Bai have any advantages. That's right, he cheated us to send him the gifts. He's simply too shameless. When Bai Lu Jing heard the discussions among the crowd, his chest felt surges of pain and his blood boiled, almost spitting out a mouthful of blood. These people were initially coming to please him, each one of them were following him closely as if they were his grandsons. Besides the invaluable gifts, they were also blarneying him with compliments to win his favor. Bai Lu Jing was thinking in his mind that it was better left unsaid. He had never expected that once Huang Yueli appeared, everyone's attitudes had taken a 180-degree change, spurning him incessantly. Although he was feeling indignant in his heart, he could not reveal his emotions on his face. Because the young lady standing at the entrance of Valiant Marshal Manor was indeed his niece. Now, Huang Yueli was totally different when she was young. She had already broken out of her cocoon and transformed into a butterfly. She had flown to the skies and became someone whom he was not able to offend. Even if Prince Yuang had not turned up with her, in reality, who doesn't know the backing behind her is Prince Yuang? Besides that, at one glance, the bodyguard behind her had exceptional power. Just based on that bodyguard alone, it was enough to kill off everyone in the Valiant Marshal Manor. Bai Lu Jing was feeling both angry and anxious, but he could only swallow this grievance down as he forcefully drew out a smile and with a respectful attitude, he greeted Huang Yueli. My dear niece, you're finally back. Look at your travel-worn look. You must have suffered greatly while you were traveling outside the kingdom. Quickly come in, let second uncle hold a welcoming dinner to welcome you back. Bai Lu Jing felt that he had already brought out his utmost patience. However, Huang Yueli didn't answer his questions but silently casted an icy glance at him. That glance contained utter disdain and contempt, and anyone was able to tell that glance was as if it was directly towards a lowly servant. Bai Lu Jing held another air of indignance in his chest, almost cursing out loud. At that critical timing, when he thought of the shocking methods and outstanding innate talent this lass had shown, and the man backing her up, Bai Lu Jing managed to curb himself in time. As he clenched his teeth, his face expressed a smile which looked worse when he was crying. Lear, don't stand on ceremony with second uncle. Quickly come in. This way please. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli turned slightly as the sides of her lips curved upwards into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Second uncle, I'm so sorry, but the gatekeeper told us that you are holding your birthday celebration today and everyone who comes must present you with a gift. Unfortunately, I came back in a hurry today. Although Huang Yueli looked like she was smiling and the intonation she used was extremely courteous, but not only did Bai Lu Jing not show a sense of relief, instead the sweat beads on his forehead kept sprouting, as if he was in an adverse situation. He hurriedly cut into her words, no problem, no problem. Lear, you're one of us, there's no need for any presents. Really, don't take the trouble. Second uncle knows the regards that you have for me and I appreciate it very much. Huang Yueli laughed lightly, how can we do that? To come empty-handed, if this rumor was spread out, other people would say that the daughter of the Marshal Valiant Manor doesn't know her etiquette. What's more, I had already informed the gatekeeper that I had prepared a gift. Uncle, please accept it. Bai Lu Jing's heart was pounding non-stop. If it was 1 month ago, he would probably believe that Huang Yueli had done it out of goodwill. But today, he absolutely cannot believe such words. Since when did this lass become so kind-hearted? What kind of birthday gift will she give him? If she was really here to send her birthday congratulations, was there a need to injure those guards so severely? Those heavily injured guards were still crying out in pain, blocking the entrance of the main hall, until now, unable to get up. Bai Lu Jing coughed dryly and said, Lear, you're being too courteous, don't mention it, this is something that I should do. Huang Yueli laughed without a care, MOE, quickly pass that gift to my second uncle. He is a prosperous man, whatever type of gift, he would be able to accept it. No need, there's really no need. Bai Lu Jing knew something was up and continued to shake his head as he rejected. However, it was all too late. From the moment that Huang Yueli stepped into the Valiant Marshal Manor, on seeing that he had yet to shift, she had already decided to give Bai Lu Jing and his family a lesson that they would not forget. This was to let them know that in front of her, if they continued to play this sort of two-faced petty games, what kind of price they would have to pay for it. Under the command of Huang Yueli, Moe's flexible sword wobbled and a streak of light flashed towards Bai Lu Jing's direction. Bai Lu Jing was different from those guards. His cultivation wasn't bad at all, and his cultivation was currently at Defensive Profound Realm 9 level. In the South Yu Kingdom, he was considered as one of the top experts. As he saw the sword glint flashing over, he instinctively withdrew the sword which was hung around his waist to deter the attack. However, Moe's speed was extremely fast, faster than what he had imagined. Bai Lu Jing's finger had yet to tuft the sword hilt when the flexible sword had heavily struck on his face. A streak of deep scar running from the top to the bottom, inflicting by the sword, had split his face deep into the bones, causing his face to be split into 2 parts. Following that, with a flick of Moe's wrist, a third slash was drawn against Bai Lu Jing's face. Bai Lu Jing's face had already been reduced to a aw shape as his flesh split open and blood was spurting outwards, his face beyond recognition. There were shrilling screams from all around. Bai Lu Jing's entire body was trembling from the pain as his eyes were shrouded in a blood mist, unable to see clearly what was happening in front of him. He could barely make out a blurred figure slowly walking closer to him. Following that was Huang Yueli's voice from the top of his head. Second uncle, this huge gift that your niece had gifted, do you like it? If you feel it's not enough, I can return you 2-fold. You can also listen on. Bai Lu Jing's entire body turned cold and he was trembling as he curled up into a ball on the ground, unable to speak a single word. He had never imagined that Huang Yueli would not consider that they were blood kin and mercilessly struck out at him. And she was utterly vicious, totally not leaving him any standing to back off. Although she was Bai Lu Feng's daughter, in terms of manner, she was similar to her father, but in terms of character, they were totally different. Bai Lu Jing was a gentleman, generous and big-hearted. Towards Bai Lu Jing this brother, although he did not overly indulge him, but his love and protection towards him was plenty. No matter what wrong Bai Lu Jing committed, as long as he sincerely begged for mercy, Bai Lu Feng would let it pass. However, Huang Yueli totally don't buy it at all. From the bottom of her heart, she had never considered him as her relative at all. Just based on what Bai Lu Jing had done to the original Bai Ruoli, he deserved to die at least 1,000 times. But Huang Yueli didn't want to dirty her hands because of a scum like him, so she cannot be too bothered. When Huang Yueli didn't hear Bai Lu Jing's reply, her lips curled slightly. Looks like second uncle is not satisfied with this present of him. He feels that it is too light and too little. Since that's the case, Bai Lu Jing almost fainted and hurriedly replied, "Satisfied, satisfied, I'm very satisfied." Huang Yueli chortled, "Second uncle's hobby is really unimaginable. To be beaten up till this state, you're still so delighted and satisfied. Don't tell me you have a hobby that cannot be divulged." Bai Lu Jing's entire body was shaking in anger. It was obviously Huang Yueli who had coerced him into saying this, but this last made it sound like it was his special hobby. He had seen sinister and two-faced people before, but he had never met such a sinister and two-faced person before. And he was not able to resist. Just at this moment, disorderly shuffling footsteps was heard from the corridor. A figure ran over from the backyard, and upon seeing Bai Lu Jing in such a terrible state, the person immediately ran over and screaming in a loud crying voice, "Marquis! Marquis, how are you? What happened to you? Quickly wake up. Who had caused you to be in such a state?" The person was the Marquis lady. Seeing Huang Yueli standing by the side, Marquis lady immediately understood what had happened. She raised her head and stared at her viciously, loudly berating her. "Bai Ruoli, you slut. All these are your doing, isn't it? Why have you come to harm our family again? You've already harmed my daughter by so much, and now you're harming your second uncle. Where on heavens can you find such a slut who don't give a damn about family relations? That's right, your mother was a wild woman from an unknown country, and after giving birth, she had eloped with another man. It's no wonder that she could give birth to such an ungrateful thing like you." Initially Huang Yueli wasn't affected by the rambling, but when she heard the insults hurled onto this body's biological mother, her eyes flashed a glint of murder. She sneered icily, "Very good. Looks like I had only given second uncle a gift, and not to second aunt had caused you displeasure. That's right, this niece of yours don't know any etiquette, so here's what I owe you." Moe observed her reaction and immediately understood her meaning. His flexible sword flashed out once again, and copying the past action, he had drawn out several scars on her face. But following that, the next strike was towards the Marquis lady's mouth. With this strike, her lips had been split. The berating that came from the Marquis lady ceased abruptly and cried out a blood-curdling scream. But due to the wound on her mouth, she was unable to scream entirely and could only make out murmurs from her throat. You can also listen on. Marquis lady stared daggers at her, wide-eyed, and wanted to continue berating, but she was not even capable to completing a complete sentence. Huang Yueli walked over and coldly looked at the couple who were lying on the ground. "When I left the South Yu Kingdom, I had already told you to get lost from my father's valiant martial manner. Obviously, you treated my words as passing wind. Not only did you usurp my residence, you had dared to use the name of Prince Yuang and set up a banquet here. Was it that you thought I had left the South Yu Kingdom and would never return? Or was it that even if I had returned, I could not do anything to you? Bai Lu Jing had almost fainted, but when he heard Huang Yueli's clear voice, his heart started thumping and he regained his conscience in shock. Because what Huang Yueli said was exactly what he had in mind. The fact that Huang Yueli had left the country with Li Moying was witnessed by many. As Li Moying's cultivation was simply too heaven-defying, most people had guessed that he was accepted in a reputable sect, and his departure this time was to bring his unwed fiancée back to the sect. And perhaps once they left, they would not return. Bai Lu Jing was initially threatened by Huang Yueli and grabbed hold of time to shift houses, in fear that Huang Yueli would return and question him. However, the rumor was slowly spreading around in the city, and when he heard it, he thought it made perfect sense. Prince Yuang's cultivation was extremely high, so he would probably not be bothered with the emperor's position in such a small country like South Yu Kingdom. Since he had brought Huang Yueli back to her sect, with an innately sixth-grade talent like Huang Yueli, perhaps she would also be accepted into the sect and likely not return here. If that was the case, what did he have to fear? Since Huang Yueli would not be back to seek revenge, then her marriage to Prince Yuang might not be a bad thing after all. It had turned into an auspicious event. No matter how you see it, Huang Yueli was the daughter of the valiant Marshal Manor. To those outsiders who did not know the truth, even if she was not close to Bai Lu Jing, she was indeed still her bloodkin niece. That was why Bai Lu Jing was able to make use of the relationship to re-establish his standing in the South Yu Kingdom. Although his daughter was not made the crown princess, and was in fact abolished, he still had a niece who was married to a peerless expert, and that niece was a sixth-grade talent. With this relationship, who in the entire South Yu Kingdom would dare to look down on him? Even if it was the emperor, he would still need to show him courtesy. When he thought of this, Bai Lu Jing was not flustered anymore. In fact, he became even more arrogant and despotic. Adding on to the fact that there were plenty of people who wanted to be acquainted with Prince Yuang, so they automatically claimed connections with him. In this way, it made Bai Lu Jing to have an illusion as if he was the father-in-law of Prince Yuang. For today's birthday, he had even hosted a 100-table banquet. All the respectable and powerful families from the entire kingdom were virtually present to send their birthday congratulations. Even Lu Yi's grandfather, a fourth-degree realm's duke, had personally appeared and prepared a large gift. This had given Bai Lu Jing lots of glamour as he floated in the clouds. However, just at the moment where Bai Lu Jing was most gleeful, Huang Yueli suddenly returned. And upon her return, she had unrestrainedly struck out. Not only did she round up all his guards, even Bai Lu Jing and the Marquis lady were not let off, all of them were gifted with flowery faces. You can also listen on. Bai Lu Jing laid on the floor completely disheartened. The minute he saw Huang Yueli, he already knew today he was going to get into big trouble. But even though he already knew it in his heart, he had absolutely not thought that Huang Yueli was much more vicious than he could imagine. As he bore with the acute pain, his mouth was mumbling to be forgiven. Bai Ruoli, I'm wrong. I shouldn't have not heeded your orders and continued to occupy the valiant Marshal Manor. I know I'm in the wrong, and I will move out immediately, now. Please let us off. Bai Lu Jing had wanted to kneel down and kowtow in front of Huang Yueli, but due to the tremendous pain on his body, he was unable to climb up. Huang Yueli sneered coldly, you just discovered that you're in the wrong. Too late. Since you don't know what's good for you, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to move on your own. MOE, help me strip the Marquis and Marquis lady and throw them out. All the assets in the valiant Marshal Manor, they're not allowed to remove a single piece. Chase all the other servants away. If you're not able to do it in time, get Kai Wei and the rest over to do it will do. Moe respectfully bowed as he responded with a yes and walked towards the couple. Marquis Lady started screaming, what are you trying to do? You dare to strip my clothes? I'm the Marquis Lady, a first-rate title Marquis Lady. You dare to insult me like this? Get lost, get away from me. Even so, Moe was unmoved by what she said, and under the slashing of the flexible sword, both of their clothes were shredded into broken strips. Following that, he pulled them by their hair and shook them till the strips fell from their bodies and threw them against the outside of the wall. At the entrance of the manor, there were several people who were here to send their congratulations and had yet to leave. Even though such a sudden situation had happened and the banquet was sure to fail, but these people were curious about what was happening before them and they were unwilling to leave. Indeed, by choosing to stay, they were able to see such an exciting scene. When the two bare-bodied figures appeared at the entrance of the manor, everyone stared wide-eyed as they surrounded them. At one glance, their eyeballs almost fell out. Whoa, isn't this too exciting? Under the bright daylight, there's someone who came out to run in the nude. Isn't this too indecent? What's more, it's two disfigured people. Their faces are just too scary, it's full of blood. Who are these people? Didn't you hear what went on in the manor? These are the Marquis and Marquis Lady, they have been chased out by the third miss of the Bai family. Ha! What? What happened? Isn't it obvious? Isn't all because they are too shameless? They usurped Bai Lu Feng's property and assets for their own and even tortured his daughter. Now the third miss is back to claim back her assets, they still insist on staying there, so now they're being thrown out. Serve them right. Tisk tsk, I'd never imagined that the Marquis would do such a thing. He's simply too shameless. To be surrounded by people in the nude had already made them embarrassed beyond words. They wished that they could bore a hole into the ground and hide in it. And now, the surrounding spectators had added in oil and fire, with words of despise. This made the couple wish that they could just die on the spot. Meanwhile in the manor, Moe had instantly searched the inner courtyard and quickly found Kai Wei and the other servants, who were originally waiting on Huang Yueli, were all locked up in the firewood hut by Bai Lu Jing. He had even starved them as all of them had been tormented by the hunger till their faces had turned sallow. Some of them even had scars of being whipped. Huang Yueli's face immediately changed. Bai Lu Jing really thinks that I'm dead. He dared to even touch my people. Looks like by throwing him out was too easy for him. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli had yet to unleash her temper when she saw Moe dragging someone out from the backyard. She stared at the figure and can't help but raised her eyebrow. That person was her second sister Bai Ruoqi. The only difference was Bai Ruoqi looked entirely different from the icy cold beauty that she displayed in the past. Her current face filled with bumpy scars which made her look even uglier than a pockmarked face. All these scars were due to the icy thorns which inflicted on her face by Huang Yueli on that fateful day. In addition, her footsteps were coxcombry with a slight lame. It was apparent that both the internal and external injuries on her had yet to completely recover. There wasn't much chance that she had any cultivation much left. Huang Yueli stood at a distance of a few footsteps away and could not sense any of her profound energy. Seeing Huang Yueli standing in front of her, a glint of unhidden malice flashed within her eyes. Because compared to her ugly and discomposed look, Huang Yueli looked much better than her. Even though she hastened on the entire journey and Huang Yueli was covered in dust, but her composure looked extremely well and high-spirited. She seemed to become much prettier than before. Her luscious red lips blossoming as though they were cherry blossoms were alluring, totally looking like a young lady in love. Obviously, the man who had turned her into this was the suave and powerful Prince Yu Wang. Bai Ruoqi almost bit her silver tooth to smithereens. What could that heavenly Prince Yuang see in this little lass? The slutty Huang Yueli had taken advantage of everything. Not only was she suddenly able to cultivate, she became a sixth-grade talent and caught Prince Yuang's eye and got together with her. Such a powerful and handsome man should belong to her by Ruoqi, and yet that lass actually snatched her away. Bai Ruoqi was both envious and jealous. If she could, she would have rushed up and strangled Huang Yueli on the spot. But she had stayed in the underground prison in the South Yu Kingdom for more than 10 days. It was only upon Li Shui's return to the kingdom that she was allowed to return home. The experience of the short stint had slowly sapped away her arrogance and allowed her to realize the reality that was happening. When Moe dragged her out earlier, he had displayed his power and was absolutely a first-rate expert. Bai Ruoqi knew she was not his opponent and had not dared to be rash. She only used a pair of begrudging eyes to stare at Huang Yueli. Even though Huang Yueli was stared in such a manner, it didn't impact her at all. Of course she knew Bai Ruoqi hated her, but so what? She liked the feeling that people hated her to the core but yet could not do anything to her. Hang Yueli couldn't be bothered to even cast a glance at her and simply waved her hand. "Oh, it's my second sister." Since her parents have already been chased out to run around in the nude, it really seems not right for her to be fully clothed standing here. Throw her out to run around naked too. Moe nodded and proceeded to take action. Bai Ruoqi had not expected her to come up with this and couldn't help but started screaming in a high-pitched voice. "Oh, let me go. Let me go. Bai Ruoli, you're too much. Using such an evil method. If Prince Yuang knows of your underhanded methods, he will definitely spurn you. All your innocents are just putting on an act. I must tell Prince Yuang about it." Huang Yueli raised her eyebrow and didn't bother about her blustering but only reminded Moe, "Oh yes, I forgot, since I just came back from a trip, how could I not give my second sister a gift? Moe, why didn't you remind me? You can also listen on." At this moment, Moe held Huang Yueli in high reverence in his heart. To have reached the pinnacle of being black-bellied, even his master was left in the dust. The entire family of this valiant martial manor had been so bold to annoy her, so digging their own grave was the result of their own doing. He hastily lowered his head to acknowledge his mistake. "Yes, it's your subordinate's negligence. Your subordinate will prepare the gift to second miss this instance." Huang Yueli simply nodded and replied with a "Then." Moe immediately withdrew his sword and Bai Ruoqi screeched and simply fainted. Moe did not know what it meant to show tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex as he proceeded to strip her and threw her out from the enclosure. Outside the enclosure, the surrounding crowd gave out a wah in surprise and gleefully surrounded the new nude contender. At one look, it was something really incredible. The one that had fallen this time was a stark naked second miss of the Bai family. The crowd momentarily got excited. The two who were thrown out earlier were the older couple by Lu Jing and the Marquis lady. They were after all older in age and they had lost their shapely figures. So even though they were stripped of their clothes, there was nothing much to see. However, Bai Ruoqi was different. Although her face was disfigured, her figure was not bad. Long slender legs, few people had the chance to come across such a pretty woman. What's more, even if her figure was not shapely, when everyone thought of how this woman almost became the crown princess, they feel that they should ogle a few more times, and would be even better if they could touch her. Bai Ruoqi had noticed the surrounding hungry gazes as darkness covered both her eyes and she almost fainted on the spot. Fortunately there were a few servants who had escaped from the manor, chased the surrounding spectators away as they helped these trio into a safe place. Bai Ruoqi grabbed on to one of the servants' hand as she gritted her teeth. You help me go to the palace and tell whatever had happened today to the 7th princess. Tell her, the slut by Ruoli has returned. Let her take vengeance for me." The servant accepted it in a fluster and ran quickly towards the direction of the palace. Bai Ruoqi gave out an icy cold sneer. This smile that had appeared on her disfigured face, still full of blood, looked especially sinister and terrifying. Hee, did this slut think that since she was hugging on to Prince Yuang, she could not do anything to her at all? Unfortunately, Prince Yuang did not return back with her this round. For all you know, he might have already dumped this little slut. She had only dared to show off her might in front of their family. 7th princess was a valuable disciple and a 4th-rank armament master. She should have ways to curb this little slut. In the enclosure of the valiant martial manor, Huang Yueli did not know what Bai Ruoqi was thinking, but even if she knew, she would only sneer coldly. She appointed Kai Wei to be the head housekeeper of the Valiant Martial Manor, and she would be fully responsible for keeping track of the Valiant Martial Manor's finances, drawing up the responsibilities for all the servants, and she withdrew herself from the rest of the matters. What she had to do now was a very important task, and she cannot be delayed even for 1 second. That was to break through her level. To her, the largest gain in entering the Dark Moon Forest this round was to collect all the ingredients required for her to cultivate the 2nd stage of the 9 Phoenix transformations. That included the extremely hard-to-obtain 7th-grade magical beast core, which was now in the possession of her hands. With this, she can now prepare to break through for a 2nd time. In order to protect all the people who she loved, she must absolutely obtain enough power and not become an obstruction to anyone. Breakthrough was right in front of her eyes. You can also listen on. Upon seeing Huang Yueli safely returning, she was teary-eyed as she had a stomach full of grievances to voice out. However, Huang Yueli didn't have time to bother about her and was in a hurry to go into closed-door cultivation. She asked for Moe and urged again and again, "Brother Moe, I'm going into closed-door cultivation now. I reckon it will take around half a month. If you're not in a hurry, can I trouble you to help me look out for the matters around the manor? Additionally, my servant Kai Wei and the guards around the manor have some innate ability. It would be good if you can help to give them some pointers." Moe naturally accepted the tasks. "This is within your subordinate's job scope, 3rd Miss, please don't worry." After Huang Yueli had settled all the matters, she set up an array surrounding the study room and locked herself inside, preparing for her breakthrough. This round's breakthrough was similar to the previous round. Most of the herbs that were required to be placed in the bathtub to the boiling point and through the medicinal bath, absorbing the fire attribute energy to draw out the innate potential of the flame spirit physique. The only difference was the dozens of 5th to 7th grade fire attributed magical beast cores in Huang Yueli's possession. The energy that were stored in the magical beast cores could not be absorbed through the medicinal bath. She could only follow how the normal practitioners did, to move their qi, crush the magical beast cores and extract the profound energy from within. Huang Yueli placed the herbs into the bathtub and summoned the little phoenix from the empty space. The appearance of Wang Kai was very glamorous. Not only did he bring along his favorite drumstick, he was also squatting on top of the little vulture's head when he appeared. Even though the little vulture was larger in size by several times, but it had no resistance against little Phoenix's might. Because the blood of the little Phoenix was simply too strong, it was much higher than the 7th grade magical beast by several levels. Huang Yueli saw the little Phoenix sitting on top of the little vulture's head leisurely, as if he was like a little emperor on a secret inspection, and was momentarily speechless. The corners of her lips twitched as she called out, "Wang Kai, you are doing well recently, eh?" Chirp chirp. Little Phoenix gleefully cried out, flapping his wings as he flew down from the little vulture's head, and as he landed on the ground, he had turned into the appearance of a young cute boy. The boy's gaze landed on the huge bathtub on the ground. Female devil, you are going to break through again. Huang Yueli nodded affirmatively. That's right, quickly helped to light the fire. This round to break through to the second stage, I will need an even more powerful blaze than the previous, so you have to stay beside me to help add more fire when needed. Oh, it's like this. Although boy nodded his head, his eyeballs were rolling around in all directions. Huang Yueli had initially turned around, but she could feel that the little boy's gaze had stopped on her, so she turned around to face him again. What are you looking at? No, nothing. Little boy held an innocent expression, that big dreamy eyes suddenly sparkled, giving off a lovely look. However, Huang Yueli was not tricked by him, and as she coughed lightly, she warned, "You'd better not try to trick me. It's not right for little kids to tell lies, and I cannot guarantee that I won't educate you in my loving way." What? You're conducting domestic violence again. Little boy suddenly jumped up and instinctively covered his backside as he retreated a few steps and hid behind the back of the little vulture. Little vulture failed to understand and turned his head as the hair of its head stood up vertically. Huang Yueli gave a crafty smile as she said, "Why are you so scared? Feeling guilty? If you did not have any bad ideas on your mind, why would you be afraid of me beating your buttocks? You can also listen on." Little boy could not answer back against her words, and after a short while, he replied with a stammer, I really didn't have any bad ideas, okay? Look at my innocent eyes." He then widened his eyes even bigger. Unfortunately, Huang Yueli did not fall for his tricks and raised an eyebrow as she queried, "Really not going to tell the truth?" Little boy gave a cold shudder. Whenever female devil had this expression, it means she was going to do something to him. And whenever he thought of the horrible avenues that she used to bully other people, he immediately gave in. "I was just looking at you. Because I was worried about your safety," he replied awkwardly. Sigh, although he was of royal blood and was a powerful divine creature, large phoenix, but the female devil was too terrifying, so he had to give in a little. Of course, he had to maintain the demeanor of divine creatures, and not because he was afraid of this female devil. Little Phoenix bit on his fingernails while trying to give himself various reasons to boost his courage. When Huang Yueli heard his answer, she was shocked, but almost immediately she recovered from it, and on her face was an expression which was in between funny and annoyed. This little monster was probably still harboring hatred for the last round when he was locked up for criticizing her unshapely body figure, so this time, he was planning to look at her nude body while she was doing her breakthrough in the medicinal bath. In this way, was she considered to be sexually harassed by a little tot? Thinking of this, she shot like an arrow to the front of Little Phoenix and lifted him up. Little Phoenix originally wanted to hide under the feathers of the little vulture, but little vulture was still her contracted spiritual pet, so under Huang Yueli's one look, he automatically retreated. Little Phoenix had nowhere to hide and could only be lifted by his collar. His two short legs were still dangling in midair as he made an attempt to struggle. "Let me down, let me down. You dare to lift a precious phoenix like that, don't you want to live anymore? I will puff out a ball of fire and smoke you to death, humph humph." Huang Yueli sneered, "Instead of properly learning, you still dare to argue back. Your feathers have yet to be fully grown and you dare to harbor designs on your master. Wait and see how I will punish you." Little boy was punished severely and sprawled on the ground while his tears were falling like a waterfall. "Boo hoo hoo, I cannot live anymore. At my young age, I've lost my parents, my brother don't love me, my sister don't live me, and I've even fallen into the hands of this perverted master who loves domestic violence. Where on heavens can you find such a kid like me who was born into a tough life? It's totally illogical." Huang Yueli's mouth started twitching. This damned kid was so hard to educate. She responded chillingly, "Next time you dare to look at your sister bathing, I'll throw you over to Li Moying. What? You will throw me to him? Little Phoenix's face turned green immediately. Why? Oh, you peeked at his fiancée bathing. As a man, he will not take this lying down. I'll hand you over to him to be taught properly. After all, how can such a fine lady like me even allow her fiancé to wear a green hat? Do you think I said correctly? Little Phoenix was already shivering and curled up into a ball. Don't tell that fellow. I will listen to you, all right? Boo-hoo-hoo, he don't want to follow that cold bloodthirsty man. Female devil might be scary, but that man was scarier by 10,000 times. Just one look from him already made his heart unbearable. If he were to fall into his hands. Little Phoenix trembled and his attitude immediately took a 180-degree turn. He smiled obsequiously. Master, didn't you say you want to break through? Why have you not started yet? I'll start the fire for you now, and I guarantee the fire will be very prosperous and you will be extremely satisfied with it. You can also listen on. Most importantly, if the energy stored within the magical beast core was too strong, in the process of absorbing the energy might cause the practitioner to be unable to take it, leading to various internal injuries. The most serious consequence was a severance of meridians or even exploding up leading to death. Therefore, for first-degree realm practitioners, they can only start from absorbing first-grade magical beast cores. Even if it was a genius born with high innate skill, generally they would start from second-grade magical beast cores. As for magical beast cores of grades higher than that, they do not even dare to try. The reason was because it was simply too dangerous. If one was not careful, not only will he not be able to cultivate and advance, he might even throw his life away. If Li Moying knew that Huang Yueli was attempting to use the 5th-grade magical beast core to cultivate, he would rather be beaten to death than to pass this to Huang Yueli to take this risk. However, at this moment of time, the magical beast core that Huang Yueli had crushed was indeed a genuine 5th grade. A first-degree Realm 9 level practitioner was actually able to absorb the energy of a 5th-grade magical beast core. If this were to be leaked out, probably no one would ever believe it. You can also listen on. Even if it was only just saying, others would say he was overestimating his own strengths. If a normal person was to do such a thing, the minute the magical beast core was crushed, it would already cause the Dantian to explode and die on the spot. However, Huang Yueli was safe. Instead of the body exploding, there was a peaceful expression on her face, not even with a frown on her eyebrows. It was silent and peaceful. A raging fire attributed energy dissipated, but it lingered momentarily on the fragments of the broken magical beast core. Shortly, as though an invisible hand was leading it, the energy congealed into the straight line and gradually floated towards Huang Yueli's chest. Even Little Phoenix was stunned when he saw this scene. What? This can actually be done. It should be fake, right? How did female devil do it? Flame spirit physique. Was it so perverse? When the energy dissipate, it would run amok and totally unable to be controlled. The direction of dispersion was also disorderly, similar to an explosion, it will spurt in all directions. However, in Huang Yueli's hands, this raging energy became tamed and at a tug of her finger, it voluntarily allowed to be absorbed into her dantian. At the instant that the fire-attributed energy rushed to Huang Yueli's chest, Little Phoenix's heart jumped straight into his throat. He was really afraid that Huang Yueli would be hurt by the raging exploding energy and die on the spot. He refused to wink his eyes while staring at the bathtub, not because he wanted to see the beauty leave the bath but was really afraid she would die because of this. Eventually, the truth had been proven, little Wang Kai had worried over nothing. No accidents happened at all. The energy in the magical beast core were totally drawn out and were slowly drifting towards Huang Yueli as she absorbed everything in. Ordinary people, even for those experienced 9th-degree realm practitioners, it would be a major achievement if they were able to absorb around 80% of the energy of the magical beast core. Energy dispersion was unavoidable. However, she had managed to absorb the entire energy in the magical beast core, not even leaving any dregs behind. Little Phoenix had been watching her from the corner of his eye, and only when the last bit of energy was absorbed into Huang Yueli's body did he heave a sigh of relief. But he had not entirely feel relieved. The reason was because absorption was just the first step. Huang Yueli had to completely refine the profound energy before she can convert it for her own use. With this highly intense fire-attributed profound energy, for a first-degree realm practitioner like Huang Yueli, it would be extremely difficult to refine it. She might not be able to refine it completely even after a month or two. Little Phoenix saw that the flames below the bathtub was slightly lessening and blew another puff from away. At the same time, he was overcome with boredom as he propped his head up. Looks like this round they would be in closed-door cultivation for a month of two. It would be extremely bored, and he would be bored to death. But the most important thing was his drumsticks were almost finished. Sigh, what a tragedy. Little Phoenix was drawing circles on the ground, but after a while, he lifted his head. It seemed, something was wrong somewhere. The fire-attributed energy in the air was starting to go into a rage again. Little Phoenix hurriedly turned his head around, and when his sight was set, his eyeballs almost fell out from his sockets. Because Huang Yueli had crushed another 5th-grade magical beast core. What was she thinking? Could it be that she was preparing to absorb another magical beast core? But how much time had passed? It was only slightly over 2 hours. Had she already fully refined the energy of the previous magical beast core? Extra chapter, Previous Life, First Meeting 30 years ago. In the most lavish tea house of the Sky Emperor City was filled with various guests from the soaring heavens continent. With exception, all of them were powerful practitioners, and they were of pivotal importance, experts in the various strengths that they were in. However, in the Sky Emperor City where all the powerful experts consolidated, they were just another ordinary member. The guests were huddled in groups of 2s and 3s, earnestly discussing the first upcoming tournament that was going to be held in the Sky Emperor City. Sky Emperor's first tournament was the #1 famous pugilist meet in the soaring heavens continent, and only contestants under the age of 30 could enter. To be able to get into the top 3, or even top 10, top 100 would definitely become a famed contender in the entire soaring heavens continent. Have you heard? This year's first tournament, but the contenders are plentiful. All the top sect in the soaring heavens continent had people entering. Yes, the third young master of the Sky Devil sect was rumored to have broken to the 6th-degree realm at the age of 20. He will entering the tournament this time. Not only that, the young sovereign from Cloud Ocean sect was rumored to be a 8th-grade talent. And he is also a trio attribute practitioner, and he has already broken to the 6th-degree realm. And there's Johua Islands. Just at this moment, someone pointed to the streets below. Look quickly. The carriage's ostentation is so grand. Who is it? The crowd consolidated to the window and drew a breath of cold air. It was because the carriage below was simply too extravagant. All the horses pulling the carriage were 7th-grade magical beasts, and the bodyguards alongside the carriage were at least 7th-degree realm experts. He consciously knew that no one could match up to his innate skill, and with a handsome countenance, his eyes were always on the top of his head. No matter where he went to, many young ladies of outstanding upbringing would automatically turn to woo him, but he had never bothered about a single one. It was until he saw the young lady in the carriage that his heart missed a beat, and following that, thumping all the way speedily. So it wasn't because he didn't find a match, but just that, he had not caught the right person yet. The youth quietly raised his teacup, listening to the bustling voices in the tea house. Huang Yueli, Imperial Empress of the mythical Flame Palace. Her name was indeed a reflection of her name. Her name was beautiful and her person was even more beautiful. So, she likes a man who was strong and powerful. She only wished to marry the #1 expert. Then he shall seat himself into that position and become the only man who was worthy of her. 3 months later. The #1 tournament that was held once a decade was won by a completely unknown figure. One who had never been heard of, a youth who had come from the border of a small city had oppressed all the peerless talents from the various sect, and becoming #1. Henceforth, Mu Qingying's name had been spread widely all over the entire Soaring Heavens continent. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.